Should I turn the TV off?
Welcome in to Post Game Live on Channel BSR. We're here to talk about game number 2, which ended up being an Orioles win 6-5 over the Tampa Bay Rays. I am Jake English from Bird's Eye View, and I'm joined by Cody Colston.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about tonight's win. Before we get started, just want to welcome you back to Channel BSR's Post Game Live. We'll be here twice a week, recapping Orioles games on the East Coast and Central Time Zone. Any late games, we'll go ahead and we'll do a live pregame show to get you set for that that evening's game and to recap anything that happened prior in the series. Tonight we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk about that Orioles victory. So let's do a quick review of the box score, if you don't mind. And I'm going to start with Orioles pitching, which, well, let's just say it was a little up and down. We had a 4.1 inning start from Wei Chen, followed by a great appearance, at least for a while, by Kevin Gausman, and then a series of relievers ending right with Zach Britton, as I'm sure we'll talk about to close things out. Now, the Orioles started out with a laugher. They scored 6 runs, but they allowed the Rays to creep back in as things got a little too dicey in the mid to late innings. Cody, when you look through the box score, is there anything that jumps out at you as far as anything the Orioles did, either or on the pitching side?
Probably it's going to be Snyder. That 3 walks and that early RBI single, I think that really set the tone for the entire game. Pierce, as always, he's still on fire. He doesn't turn off, apparently, with a 2-run homer. That top of the lineup is firing on all cylinders right now, and that's really the key. That's been the key to success the past 2 games.
Absolutely. And you talked about Pierce being on fire. It's particularly being on fire in the Trop. Before we get going into the individual pieces, I also wanted to throw out there that, of course, I mentioned Kevin Gausman's appearance, but Kevin Gausman was excellent in this particular game, and it was all heat for a while there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He touched 100. He caught a couple guys looking at 97, and that just blew me away. And then he just mixed it up. I think his slider was a little bit off tonight, to be honest, because I saw when he threw that a few times, it was both high, but it was that part where the hitters just couldn't get up to it. So that's
Lots of Orioles hitless tonight. We had hitless nights from Chris Davis. I'm sure we'll touch on that. Manny Machado, Ryan Flaherty, and Caleb Joseph, as well as Jonathan Scope, who did not appear offensively. But we did have just enough offense to start the game to get things going. The top of the order did its job, certainly. On the pitching side, I know I mentioned Chen and Gausman, as well as Britton. On the other side, if you go to the pitching for the Rays, you had 5 2/3 innings from Carnes, and Carnes had a rough outing to start with, but he ended up a little stronger than that. Appearances by Balfour, who Oriole fans may remember. Another appearance by Steve Getz, Kevin Jepson, and Brad Boxberger. And the story offensively for the Tampa Bay Rays was really surprising. So the box score tells only part of the tale, but we watched and listened to the game. So I wanted to stop getting. Your highlight for this game?
My highlight? Definitely. Sorry, you cut out of it there. Definitely, it's going to be Lunchbox and Steve Pierce fighting for my heart in that 1 and 2 spot. My bold prediction was De Aza to be that all-star this year, but right now, as of right now, it looks like Pierce. I mean, 2 games in, but it looks like Pierce and Lunchbox are all stars as is.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy, if you don't love him, then you're a robot, and you have no business enjoying baseball in any way, shape, or form. All right, what was your low light that didn't work out for you?
Definitely Chen getting lit up, deflating. I think he went 3 innings before he actually started getting lit up there with those. It was a 2-run homer, wasn't it? Correct me, or no? That was Gosman. Gosman had the 2-run homer
Well,
against him.
what wasn't? It was just the number of pitches. I mean, it wasn't so much the runs that scored against him. It was just the way that he struggled to get outs at any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was around like 33 pitches in the second inning, if I remember correctly. So that's never a good thing.
for me, the low light was Adam Jones in the top of the seventh with the bases loaded and one out, grounding into the double play. Not even a productive out, which we would have taken, and it was really frustrating to watch that happen, especially because the game had gotten much closer than it had any business of being, especially when the Orioles jumped out to a 6-0 lead.
Right.
All right, well let's talk about the offense. It was really the tale of two offenses for a while there. The Orioles jumped out to a huge lead in the early innings, and they did it mostly without the home runs. You got 4 runs early with no home runs. That's the kind of thing we definitely want to see more of out of this lineup.
Definitely. The Orioles relied very heavily on the home runs last year, and it's good to see them actually kind of shying away from it this early and actually becoming a more rounded team. I also want to point out the fact that the trend of Chen just getting a ridiculous amount of run support is still going. The past 2 seasons, he's gotten a ridiculous amount of runs for him. If you look just to last year, I'm looking, and if you look at what is it? July, he had 11 runs for him, 10 runs, 9 runs, 8 runs, just a plethora of run support. And, I mean, what else can a pitcher ask for than that?
Yeah, and he needed every bit of it tonight. The other thing that I'll say about the offense today is that after the Orioles got out to that early lead, they just seemed to coast through the rest of the game. They seemed to shut it down early, and whether or not that was Carnes making the adjustment, or whether or not it was the Orioles just simply going cold, I'm not really sure. But it would have been nice to see a sustained drive, so to speak, from their offense.
Right, exactly.
It was, kind of squeezed out at the end there. Let's talk about the defense. And you had a note about Caleb Joseph that I thought deserved some attention.
Joseph just shows off his defense. I mean, a lot of people like to highlight the fact that he throws guys out, which is always nice, but the amount of balls in the dirt he blocked tonight was crazy. I think he only allowed 1 pass ball, if I remember correctly. Um, I can't see it, but yeah, I distinctly remember 1 pass ball, and then he was just all over it. He didn't let anything else by him. Definitely deserves credit on that front. I don't think that really gets as much credit as it deserves, and when it comes to other things with the catcher.
Well, it's so funny because he was such an offensive star in the minor leagues. And, he hit the Triple Crown, or it was in Double A, and he was known as a guy who could carry the stick, and then just kind of languished in the minor league system and wasn't really known for much of anything. And so if he's going to make his money here in the majors, it's going to be defensively, and I think we've seen that in the early part of the 2015 season. For me, defensively, I thought the interesting thing was the botched double plays. And
Yeah.
that, you could say, is a little bit troublesome. Chen made a mistake, whether you call it forgetting the number of outs or what have you in the second inning, but he went for the sure out at first rather than starting the double play, and afterwards seemed to take responsibility for it. But he had already thrown a ton of pitches in that second inning, and to have to throw more, and it ended up costing him the fact that that's really what drove him out of the game. And then there was another play in the bottom of the sixth where Cabrera, the shortstop, juggled the ball that cost the Orioles a chance to turn the double play. On Twitter, Pete Gilbert swears that they wouldn't have been able to turn that double play if they had handled it cleanly. Okay, but still, the failure to get the double play, I thought, was a big story during the game and helped the Rays climb back into it.
That's exactly where you missed J.J. Hardy. right there. Is that double play?
Yeah, and also interesting on the defensive front is that the ninth inning happens and Buck Showalter brings in Jonathan Scope to play second and moves Ryan Flaherty over to shortstop. I was under the impression that Cabrera was considered to be an above-average shortstop.
Well, if you look
I
at
was
his
really surprised by that.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, if you, I looked at the signing when it first came around, and if you look at his D-WAR, it's actually very miserable, if I remember correctly. He's a flashy guy. He's like one of those guys where he has a lot of highlights, where he makes easy plays look a lot harder than they should be, is what I get the impression from him. Flaherty's better at short, but not by that much. His range factor, his Oozer or his range factor, I can't remember which one, is in the negative at shortstop. He's in the negative everywhere range-wise. Besides second base. So Cabrera, I don't really think he was signed for his defense. He was more of a offensive guy, which is kind of a weird thing to say because his offensive numbers don't exactly jump out at you.
Well, I think Buck Showalter really showed where his faith lies tonight when he brought Flaherty in as a shortstop and Scope at second base. I'm curious to see when Cabrera gets starts, especially while J.J. Hardy's out, if we'll see more of this in the late innings. Particularly if the Orioles have a lead. But it's something to keep an eye on as we go on defensively through the season.
Well, supposedly Hardy's going to be back Saturday, so we might not see that much of Cabrera.
Hey, from your lips to God's ears. All right, on to the pitching. We really had Mr. Jackal and Dr. Hyde this morning or this evening with Wei and Chen. We had the good Chen and we had the bad Chen. First inning looked great, didn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. He just retired the side in order. He was hitting everything low in the zone. He was hitting low in the zone the whole game, but the thing was he was going too low. He wasn't keeping it up above the knees right in the strike zone, and he was going a little bit left and right. I will give him this, though. If you look at Brooks baseball, once the lefty came up to the plate, the strike zone magically got cut in half. And so that definitely worked against him in that factor. But yeah, that first inning just great for him, and he got all that run support, and he just kind of coasted, and then it kind of all fell apart later.
Yeah, it was really interesting because he came off that long layoff between working out in the bullpen and by the time he pitched in the bottom of the first the bottom of the first inning, and he responded like a champ. I mean, he retired the side in order on 8 pitches, and you really thought that the game was going to turn out a lot differently than it did. After that, it's just he could not put people away. And it seemed like he also had long at-bats at the worst time, including right before the home run he gave up. I don't know if it's a matter of the strike zone being a little inconsistent. I don't know if it's the fact that he was trying to be too perfect and ended up nibbling. But he really struggled with his pitch count, and at that point, it led way to the next guy we want to talk about, which is Kevin Gausman. And Kevin Gausman filled a role tonight that I think made him the most valuable Oriole in the ALDS series, which was if the starter gets into any trouble, no matter the time of game, you have Kevin Gausman in the bullpen who has starter stuff, starter stamina, and can give you short, long, and as he showed tonight, heat.
Exactly. I think his pitch count was like 36, and he went 2 1/3 all the way up until he gave up that 2-run homer. But yeah, like we said earlier, he touched 100. He was throwing heat. He was making guys miss. He was making guys look. Like I said, the only big problem I had with him when I was sawing was I don't think his slider was there tonight, but that didn't seem to really matter.
Yeah, and it was funny because we keep talking about the heat, but he started out his outing with an off-speed pitch, which I think the guy swung right through. So it's interesting because, as I mentioned before, he's got the starter stuff. He has that complement of pitches. And, starting in the bullpen or coming out of the bullpen allows him to amp up and get the velocity up. He clearly won't be throwing 100+ if he's a starter for very long. But it's a nice little weapon to have back there. It's kind of like when Tommy Hunter went to the bullpen, he was able to harness his velocity and keep it going up there.
Same with Britton.
Absolutely. It was a really good start for Gausman, start of his outing, rather. It was nice to see him not give in to Longoria in that at-bat that he had, ended up walking Longoria and then dealt with Jennings on the first pitch. But the 2-run homer was not good.
No bueno. No bueno.
As far as the rest of the bullpen is concerned, you got exactly what you needed out of Darren O'Day. The guy is locked in early from all
Oh
accounts for
yeah,
what it looks like
he
so
looked
far.
like mid-season Darren O'Day. He was ready to go. He was making guys miss with that high 87-mile-per-hour fastball. He was throwing it up there, and guys were just swinging straight through it. That was a little bit crazy to see from him. You know, he's normally that guy who relies heavily on his slider just to sweep across the plate and make guys try and reach for it.
Well, he makes people uncomfortable, and that's what he
Yeah.
does. And that different look from obviously the sidearm submarine delivery, it confuses people at best. I also want to talk a little bit about Zach Britton, because Zach Britton's outing was interesting to me because it seemed like did he go 3-2 to every batter in that inning?
I think so.
I know
I
that
believe he did.
I know that he went 3-2 to at least the first two. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
he
to
went
make of
3-2 to
that.
the last guy too. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of that. I'm not sure again if it was the strike zone situation that we encountered with the umpire tonight, or if it was just that Britton was amped on his first save opportunity of the season and maybe not quite as fine as he should have been.
It could be a bunch of different things. I mean, this is obviously his second day in a row pitching. That might have a little bit factor in it, though I don't think so much. But he's going to have the next 2 days off, so we'll see after that. I mean, he's probably not going to be available tomorrow because he pitched 2 days straight, and then we have that off day, and hopefully, and maybe even another day. You know, if there's a rainout Friday.
Cody, there will not be a rainout on Friday. There will be no rainouts on Friday. Zach Britton, I have been keeping an eye on through the spring. He's kind of concerning to me because I feel like he's a one-trick pony. And the only one-trick pony that I've seen close out games real well was the last guy to wear number 42 and is destined for Cooperstown. I don't think Zach Britton is that guy, and so I'm a little worried that just throwing that sinker, that high-velocity, great sinker, is eventually going to get him in trouble. Now, I hope that's not the case. He had a great spring. I was watching for chinks in the armor all spring, and it didn't really appear to me. And hey, he's had 2 outings where he hasn't gotten roughed up. The Orioles have clearly a lot of options in the bullpen if he can't do the job. But I would love to see some clean innings from Zach Britton that are maybe a little more commanding than what we saw tonight.
Right. I think the big takeaway of the past 2 games with him is that I believe he has 5 strikeouts. Zach Britton's not a strikeout guy normally. He's very in that Jim Johnson mold where he kind of pitches to contact, gets the occasional strikeout. He uses his defense in his favor, but it's really surprising to see those strikeouts, and maybe that's him adjusting to that. Maybe he doesn't want to be that one-trick pony.
It could also be the Tampa Bay Rays effect.
Also that, yeah. I'm not going to discount that one.
Well, if we could play the Rays 162 times, I think we'd have a pretty good chance. But for tonight, the Orioles have won another game. They're 2-0. My buddy Scott Magnus on the Bird's Eye View podcast suggested that the Orioles would go wire to wire this season. So, Scotty, you are still correct, at least for game number 2. Let's go ahead and do our bottom line takeaway. Cody, what is your bottom line takeaway for what you saw tonight in this game?
If the offense keeps doing what they're doing, pitching isn't going to be that much of a question mark for well, it's not going to matter for a while, pretty much. Everyone has that question mark because they have Jimenez in the back end. You don't know if Norris is going to keep up, is going to return to what he did last year. The same with maybe even Chen, and if the offense does what they've done the past 2 games, you're not going to have to get an answer to those questions as soon as you would think you would.
Yeah, and the thing that the Orioles have done over the last couple seasons is that they've had a bunch of, average to good pitchers that they've strung together to have a successful season. And if you've got a great high-powered offense, you can cover a lot of flaws in your starting rotation. A high-powered offense and a great bullpen, you can cover a lot of flaws in your rotation. So even if it takes a while for the rotation to really settle in and lock down, hopefully the offense can continue to cover that. I think that's a good point. For me, it's the old adage, the thing that we're so tired of hearing: just win series, right? So 2 out of 3 at least here in the Trop, the best minor league ballpark in baseball. So the Orioles are set to win this series. Hopefully they can knock out the third tomorrow, have a day off, and come home for the not raining opening day game against the Toronto Blue Jays. And with that, we should probably take a look at tomorrow. You've got Miguel Gonzalez starting against Jake Odorizzi. I think you're 100% right when you say that Zach Britton probably won't be available in the bullpen. So, and probably Kevin Gausman not available in the bullpen. So you probably want to get a good start out of Miguel Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm kind of dreading going up against Odorizzi. If I'm trying to look up his numbers now, but I'm pretty sure his splits against us are not in our favor.
Well, maybe 2015 will be different. Maybe we won't get shut down by Rays pitching. Maybe we won't get shut down by nobodies who pitch against us. It would be a nice thing. It would be a nice change, I think. But.
Yeah. Apparently, I'm wrong about Odorizzi. He a lifetime against the Orioles. He is 0-2. He has a 6.52 ERA over 19 and 1/3 innings pitched. So.
Oh, see, now you're scaring me. Now that's the category of pitchers
that's
that
the
we usually
line
struggle with.
That's the stat line that the Orioles struggle against exactly.
All right, you want to make a bold prediction for tomorrow? What happens in tomorrow's game?
Snyder home run. Snyder and Pierce home run. Let's go with that.
That's not looking that bold at this point. Those two have been all right in the first two games. All right, well, that's just about going to wrap us here on Post Game Live for Channel BSR. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will be back on Thursday. Make sure to check us out every Tuesday and Thursday. Also, while you're over at BSR, make sure you check out Baltimore Sports Today, which is the daily podcast from the BSR network. And Cody Colston, I believe that you are in the podcasting zone. What do you have going on this week?
We're switching to weekly content. Me and Connor are. If you don't know that, me and Connor run the Between Two Birds podcast. We're switching to weekly for the baseball season. We're going to be recording hopefully Thursday, and then the new episode will be out Friday. As if anybody listens, Connor is now employed by the Orioles, and we have to kind of work around that with opening day and all that jazz.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff. Also, if I can throw some peer pressure on them, I understand that the Baltimoreans have been begged and pleaded with to do their annual nickname episodes. So, Sam and Alan, if you're listening, I'm waiting. And Birdland is waiting. All right. Thank you so much for watching Post Game Live on Channel BSR. For Cody Colston, I'm Jake English. Birds win 6-5.
World Series.